It's Sports by the Book at the South Point Studio. Here's Jeff Parles.
Welcome in. It is Sports by the Book here at the South Point Studio. I'm Jeff Parles. It is, we need a different name for Football Friday now.
Hoop Central.
Factual Friday? I don't know. Hoop Central Friday?
Well, let me get on that one. I'll think
Yeah,
about
we'll have to have some.
Free Throw Friday.
You know what? There we go. It's a requirement that it's an alliteration. So Free Throw Friday.
And said write it
get
down.
into it here
And
today.
likes it. That's it. It's done.
It's right on the money. Vinny Maliola is here. Chris Andrews is here. Chris Andrews in a tie today.
Well,
it is Jaromir Jagr weekend in Pittsburgh.
yes.
We're allowed to say that on this show, and Jerry's also not here. But you got his teammate.
I got a Mario Lemieux tie.
Yeah.
I could not find a Jaromir Jagr tie.
Where's your mullet?
Oh, that was gone about 40 years ago. I did have one, Vinny. Probably
No.
You had the wind tunnel tested hairdo coming out of New York.
I did.
I had the mullet. No, anyway, Jagr and Lemieux, I mean, that was just one of the great teams, 90, 91, 92.
Monster.
And unfortunately, the best team they had did not win. That was after they'd won 2 in a row. The third year, they had a 24-game unbeaten streak. We still had ties in those. And then lost in the playoffs to the Islanders. One of the worst losses of my life to suffer through. And I wonder if Dave Damashek, my other Pittsburgh boys listening, talking about some bad beats. That was a horrible, horrible beat for Penguin fans everywhere.
The Islanders did that to the Penguins a few times.
They did. Thanks for that.
Even before they won their cups, I remember.
Yeah.
It's like they come down back from 03 one year. Oh my
Yeah.
Lord.
I was there for every one of those
Oh,
games.
my God.
Every one of them.
Well, you worked at the
I
Civic
worked at
Arena,
Civic
right,
Arena.
Chris? Wow.
Yep. I was there for every one of those.
Man. Good team, buddy. That was
Anyway.
a great team.
The old school Patrick division, right?
Yeah. Wow.
Mhm.
There's
At
been
Prince
so
of
many
Wales, yeah.
divisional
Yeah.
changes. I can't even keep track of what was what.
Yeah,
when.
the NHL. The NHL just needs to go back to just the straight 1 through 8
I
in
know.
each conference
Yeah.
instead of the divisional pods. You legitimately end up with the 2 best teams, and this happened plenty of times since they've gone to this pod system about
Yeah.
a decade ago, where you end up with the 2 best teams in the same conference playing in the conference semis
Mhm.
as opposed to the conference finals, and then either works one of 2 ways: the team's out of gas and they get blasted in the next round, or they find their way to the cup final.
And I forget what year it was. It was when Gretzky was still with Edmonton, and they had home ice. Went to the conference with the better record. And I remember making the price. I made Edmonton a big favorite, whoever they were. Oh, geez, they don't have home ice. I think they won anyway. But we have any hockey historians out there. There was, I want to say about 85, something like that, where they totally messed up the home ice advantage rule, but Edmonton wound up winning anyway.
What was that against Chicago?
Oh, man, you got it right. Look at you.
No, I'm just pulling it up in front of me.
Well, they won the cup in '84.
Yeah, they would. Well, they won a bunch. Well, the Islanders won
And
their 4th straight, and then the Oilers. racked off
Islanders
a few
were
in a
80
row.
to 83, and then the Oilers won it. So had to be.
I had to go to Edmonton when I was with Calneva. We were looking to set up a stakes race at Northlands Racetrack, and I was like the liaison. I went up there, spent some time up in the, up in the Turf Club. I got to know Glenn Anderson, a guy who wound up in the Hall of Fame, played for the Oilers, played for the Rangers, great player. And he and I kind of hit it off. We were both degenerate gambler, horse bettors, and after I got to know him for a couple of days, this was after they lost to Calgary when they had hit off Steve Smith's skate. They lost 1-0 in Game 7. I said, Glenn, I really hate to say this, but you guys losing the cup that year made me so much money. He says, oh, my God. He says, you're the first one to ever tell me that. I says, well, Glenn, stop and think about it. They had to lose it to somebody, right? I'm the guy. I'm one of the guys they lost it to. So.
Was Lanny McDonald on that team? On that Calgary
I think,
team?
yeah, he was on the Calgary team. Yeah.
Wasn't he?
Yeah.
Wow.
I think that's the first 4.5 minutes we've talked hockey
Yeah, I know.
with the 2 of you guys all year long.
Well,
here on
He's
the
good,
show.
man. Getting to be a fun time. By the way, the trade deadline's coming up in about 3 weeks, 2.5 weeks.
Sounds right.
Yeah, Jake Gensel got hurt. I know he was big trade bait for the Penguins, but that's not going to happen.
Let's roll into what we saw last week real quick before we get into looking forward here, Chris. Obviously, Chiefs, again, 3 titles now in the Mahomes era. They've officially crossed into the dynastic part of things now. And from a betting perspective, Chris, I would imagine that the way that game played out, somehow still managed to stay under despite the overtime.
Yeah.
That this was probably a pretty good day, all things considered.
It was a real good day, all things considered, and talked to a few people around town and a few people up north. I still have a lot of roots up there. Northern Nevada killed it.
Yeah.
First of all, we in Las Vegas overpriced a lot of things, and the Niners always drew a big crowd in the Reno area, and everybody had the Niners, and everybody had the over. So it was a real big score for them. We did really well here, and from what I hear around town, we did better than most places in Las Vegas. And I want to maybe pat myself on the back a little bit because a couple things I said. First of all year I've been saying the kicker for the 49ers may become a problem at some point. And he missed that extra point that totally would have changed the game from – had he made it, it would have been 17-13. Instead, he misses it at 16-13. Kansas City goes down and kicks a field goal to tie. Would have been a whole different game. And I was on a couple shows. They asked me what I thought. And I said, I think this game's a dead pick'em. I think if you look through the 53-man roster, the 49ers definitely are better overall on the 53-man roster, except for 2 things, quarterback and head coach. And I think that came to fruition when we saw, how this game wound up. That was the difference in the game.
Spot on. Chris was talking about the kickers, especially for the couple of weeks leading up to it. I think overall we did achieve what we thought we would too in terms of the handle being a record. Although I thought it would be, I thought would be higher. To be honest, we got 285 and change million statewide. So while it was a new record, it was not the record that we thought. I think the thing that helped too was the props. I think we did pretty well on the props, well on the futures, and I think Las Vegas. People get caught up. Did you win or did you lose? I think overall, look, South Point was certainly a winner with the guests that were here, right, Chris? Over 7,000 added guests.
Yeah, about 7,000.
Oh, yeah.
Right,
about 7,000.
And then, by the way, that's 7,000 additional guests that were accommodated in parties and things and throughout the property. I think Las Vegas did a good job overall. I think we should salute all of our fellow citizens for everything that they did and put on a great show. And I think if you ask anybody that was involved with the game, and I haven't heard anybody at the NFL complain, and it wasn't just about the sports betting on the event either.
I would be stunned if Las Vegas doesn't get the game within 6 years. Again, Super Bowl 63, Super Bowl 64, would imagine he'll end up back here. Just going upstairs, even before the game started, just the crowd that was upstairs here at the South Point was incredible. And we're talking 2 hours before game time. Everyone's there's not a seat to be had. Everyone's going to get their fairly priced food and fairly priced drinks, which, to be honest with ourselves, doesn't happen at all in this city anymore. And it happens here at the South Point, which is all you can really ask for. Which all I'll say is, as we know, NCAA tournament's coming up.
Yep.
There is no better place in Las Vegas.
That's exactly right.
To watch, especially on Thursday and Friday.
Yep.
When you have 12 hours plus of games going all
that's
through
without
the day.
Overtimes, Jeff.
Hey, that's without overtimes, and that's without a 16 beating a 1 yet either. But there is no better place to watch the games than upstairs. Or if you happen to get a seat in here as well.
Yeah. Oh, by the way, we had God, I think we had room for 9 ticket writers. We couldn't find enough ticket writers upstairs at windows.
Yep.
I think we had either 7 or 8. And we had 4 kiosks upstairs. We'll do the same thing for March Madness. And we really got a lot of praise on the internet. Usually everybody's just trying to say how stupid you are, how horrible you are, blah, blah, blah. But we got a lot of praise from a lot of guys, not just for how we accommodated everybody, but the pricing of the food.
Oh,
you guys are saying this, you guys aren't, where there's no price gouging. I mean, beers were like, $4 and $5, $4 for like Bud and Corona and stuff like that.
I mean, you always have the $1.50 hot dog, but
always have those.
You had the foot-long hot dogs upstairs for $2.
Yeah.
Chicken tenders were cheap. I mean, everything was.
Jeff, you sound like maybe you tried some of those things.
Hey, look,
Jeff, were you sampling?
Chris, I'm a big
Sampling the
connoisseur
goods.
of food, as you would know. But no, look, it's of course we all work for the South, but. This is
we're gonna be proud of that, though.
I know. That's part of the reason I'm
Call like it is.
here. It's like that part, just seeing that crowd upstairs, seeing just how happy everyone was. Now, granted, I wasn't up there when the game ended, so who knows how happy people were.
It was about a 50-50 split.
Some were, some were not.
Going into it, everyone was so happy to be there. Great, it was a great time had by all upstairs, and of course, again.
Yeah,
plenty of people down here that had a fun time as well.
And I have to tell, I talked to Mike Libinati, who's our entertainment director, runs the showroom. He said he had 4 people in line for the showroom at midnight the night before. I said, Mike, he says, yeah, well, they were taking turns. You have to go to the bathroom at some point. That's a long wait, but they want that. And I've said it before, the showroom is the best place in town to watch that game. Or watch any big, and we do it every Monday night, by the way. So that's the place to be.
I will say, as always, saddened that football season is over. We got a lot of great stuff though coming up. March Madness, arguably the most fun 4 days. That first weekend all year in Vegas. With the Super Bowl here, maybe a little different this year, but still a whole lot of fun. Obviously, NBA playoffs. Hockey playoffs around the corner, baseball season. Yeah. That was the fun thing on Monday. It's like, I actually have to look at some baseball stuff for the first time in 6 months.
Regular season wins are up.
Yeah,
regular season wins are up.
We put those,
When are you putting up yes, no, make playoff odds?
I don't know. I haven't thought that far ahead yet. Okay. But I want to say, like, everybody loves the first 2 days of the tournament. I'm just too busy. I like Saturday and Sunday myself because you can actually
spread out. There's less.
Yeah, you can actually watch the games like Thursday, Friday. I'm just so busy. It's great basketball.
Oh yeah.
But a lot of times I only have a chance to watch a couple minutes at a whack, but Saturday and Sunday I kind of like. Personally, I like those better myself.
What's also one of the most popular bets too is over the last few years, of course, the first to 15.
Everyone loves that bet.
Let me tell you something. It is absolutely a fun time to watch some of the groups that come in and bet. We had a group a couple of years ago from Texas. You'd have thought these guys hit the lottery every time they won one. It was, and they were sitting right at the counter, right, Chris, right in front of the counter, and had a great time. They were back last year. I think they went upstairs last year, and they'll be back.
I think they did. We had Dave Jensen, the casino host, who come in. What's going on here? I said, they got first to 15s. I mean, these guys were not big bettors. But they murdered us. They beat us out of like 30,000, 40,000. I said, Dave.
All the dogs. They
had all the dogs with big prizes. I said, Dave, I'd like to bet you most of them don't walk out of here with money in their pocket by the time we get to the slot machines. And
Well, those are the first to 15s are just like you take the 16 seeds, you take the 15 seeds.
Well, you take the big. Yeah,
you're getting $4 on the 16 seeds. I mean,
they murdered us.
Hey, why not? All you need to.
By the way, we're still standing.
No,
so
I,
okay.
I knew you'd be okay. But you hit 2 of them.
When you hear a big cheer, like at like the 5 or 7 minute mark, and it's not the end of the game, you know that it's you're onto something.
Last year was an interesting one with that because, of course, we had the monumental upset of Fairleigh Dickinson upsetting Purdue outright.
Sure.
Where the whole room, I was upstairs in the bowler, upstairs last year and at the party, and the entire room at Fairleigh Dickinson first to 15.
Yeah.
The entire room, and they got the 15 first.
Yeah.
And it's like, all right, well, we got our plus money on Fairleigh Dickinson, not knowing what was coming about an hour and a half.
Destroyed their brackets at the end of that game.
Oh, they didn't destroy my bracket, but they destroyed a lot of other brackets out there last year for sure.
You had Purdue going down in that game?
I had Purdue going down to Florida Atlantic in the next round.
Okay.
So I had no issue with them.
See, I did too. But so didn't. I had other things that killed my bracket, but not that one.
No. I ended up with no Final Four teams. But hey, what are you going to do when you end up with Florida Atlantic and San Diego State as one of your national semifinals?
Who was it in that Connecticut?
Connecticut beat Miami.
And then who? Oh, Miami was the fourth thing. Okay, I forgot
Miami,
about that.
San Diego State.
I had a That was the nail in the coffin of the tournament last year. I had a big bet on Texas to come out of that Midwest region.
Yeah.
And Houston had gotten upset by Miami. It's like, all right, well, we're in great shape. Getting a weaker team. Texas up 10 in the second half, and it was the game outright in regulation.
Yeah.
Thus is betting the NCAA tournament in a nutshell.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is.
Going to tonight, real quick, guys. There are a few games tonight in the college slate. This is what you get on Friday night. You get a few Ivy League games right now. Cornell, by the way, out early as a 9-point favorite against Harvard. But then you get a whole bunch of mediocre games tonight. Villanova and Georgetown's the only Power 5 plus a Big East game going on tonight, which Villanova's a 10-point road favorite. That's more of an indictment of Georgetown. But the biggest game on the board is in the Mountain West.
Yes, it is.
By a wide margin tonight. And that's San Diego State welcoming in New Mexico to Viejas. Again, these two teams, I would argue, have the two biggest home court advantages in the Mountain West. Of course, the elevation in Albuquerque at the Pit, especially when they're good like they are this year. Chris, right now you have 6 on this one, with San Diego State the favorite. 6.5 out there as well, total. And this is one thing that can happen in college hoops. You guys are at 151.5. Some of the markets at 152.5. This can happen from time to time.
Yeah, it's still slicing it pretty close if you're looking for a middle.
Sure.
In New Mexico, I was watching on the internet the other night. They went into Reno and beat Nevada by 73-72, I want to say, something like that.
Right there.
Yeah, I mean, it was, nip and tuck the whole way. And I was texting with some friends of mine. I said, Nevada would grab a lead. I said, I don't think we could hold on here, boys, and I know New Mexico hit a couple big threes, I think 2 threes in their last 2 possessions to pull ahead and win by 1. By the way, they play UNLV tomorrow night, and I'm going to the game, so that should be a lot of fun. Late start, 8:30.
Yeah.
That's late for me. That's late.
CBS Sports Network wanted the late tip, Chris.
Oh, man, that's late for me, but I'll be there.
By the way, Dent is questionable for New Mexico tonight, which is a big. If he
big
can't
deal.
go, that's a major injury. Listen, I will tell you this. Outside of, let me back up. Here's the thing: the way we rate teams and power rate teams, we also power rate conferences. And
Sure.
I'll tell you this: outside of Connecticut in the Big East, and I'll even throw Marquette in, but you take out Connecticut, this Mountain West Conference is as good a conference as there is, or you could compare them to the Big East, in my opinion. That's how strong it is. And I think
that's a big statement, buddy.
I think you're going to you may get more bids from this conference than I think it could be neck and neck with the ACC, Jeff. If tomorrow the committee comes out, I believe, with their
They'll
first
have the
16, right?
Correct.
Their first 4 in each conference.
Correct.
They'll do their last 4 in and their first 4 out and all of that. And they're going to go, the top 4 seeds in each region. But I'll tell you right now, there's a lot of teams in the ACC and the Big East sweating right now, and are going to be life and death between now and the remaining couple of weeks before they get into their conference tournament.
Well, right now, Lenardi has 6 Mountain West teams in.
How many
is that right?
In the ACC?
The ACC, as of this moment, how about 4?
There you
Wow.
Big East, 4. The only leagues with more bids right now.
go. Lenardi, Pagliulo, come on.
The Big 20?
Well,
the Big 10?
The Big 12 with 9.
Okay. Big
which makes
12 is
sense.
good.
Big 12 is going to have
Big
the
12
most
is good,
bids.
yeah.
And
The
they
Big-
deserve the most bids.
The Big 12 is the best league in the country.
Absolutely.
They are.
I will tell you this.
Yeah, go ahead.
The Mountain West will probably have more than the Pac-12.
Well, I think that's a lock. I think I'd be willing to lay a team and a half on that.
So think about what I just said.
Yeah.
There's still, and again, in college basketball, there's a Power 6 conferences, right?
Yeah.
Because you have to throw the Big East in there. We just mentioned the Mountain West. Conceivably, if the draw was today, okay, they will have more potentially, and in a likelihood, have more bids than the Pac-12, the Big East, and the ACC.
Well, and forget that too, Vinny. They right now, according to Lenardi, would have the same amount of bids as the Big Ten.
The Big Ten, right?
It has
So-
20 teams.
Yeah.
Whatever,
I mean, the Big Ten with 6 right now.
Yeah. Who are the ones out of the Mountain West?
Mountain West, San Diego State.
Yes.
As a 5 right now for Glenardi. Utah State and Colorado State is 7s. A 10 seed on New Mexico and Boise.
Mm-hmm.
And then Nevada's going to Dayton right now.
Yeah.
Okay. They're playing.
Mm-hmm.
Correct. First
okay.
4.
So, now,
the
there's
important
a lot
game for
that's
Nevada
going
tomorrow night, Chris.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
There's a lot of things that are going to take place, obviously, over the next 4 weeks. But the other thing is, these schools are all beating each other up in conference play now, too, in their respective conferences. So, yeah, it's going to be interesting. But this is a big year for the Mountain West. I will tell you.
Yeah, just eyeballing it, I think the Big 12 is going to end up with 10.
I could see that.
Yeah,
it wouldn't
I think
shock
they're going to end
me.
up with
I
10.
would say there's at least 9. But they should have, as a conference, the most bids.
Yeah, Houston, Iowa State, KU, Baylor, Texas Tech, Oklahoma, BYU, TCU, and Texas, I think, are clearly all in.
Did you say Texas Tech?
I did, yes.
Yeah,
they're good.
Yeah, they're definitely.
By the way, our friend Jeff Vogel does a lot of Big 12 ratings, so I would say, and I always tell guys, follow him on Twitter. Follow, if you could, his Substack, reasonable price. Follow, a lot of great stuff out of Jeff Vogel. Yeah,
it'll be an interesting go these last few weeks in college hoops. There's really not much of anything tonight. The interesting one tonight, as always, and Vinny, we talked about this a few Saturdays ago. When the Ivy gets in, they have these they play Friday, Saturday, and tomorrow, Princeton plays Yale, who are arguably the two best teams in the league.
They're at the top.
Them and Cornell is the third team. That top 3 are very strong in the Ivy this year. I just wonder, if you want to go against both Yale and Princeton tonight, you could. You're getting 6 with the Quakers tonight at the Palestra against Yale. You're getting a whole boatload of points with Brown in Princeton tonight, getting 14 if you want it.
Well, especially the Penn game, because they're at home.
Right.
I mean, Yale's on the road there. Princeton is at least at home. And, again, these are you talk about home court. They're good teams, and they're right on top of you, too. They're not big gymnasts. There's some high schools that have bigger gyms around the country, and so the fans are right on top of you. They know what's at stake, and there's a look ahead. Yes, frankly, but the other thing too is, at one point, do they have a significant lead, and now you're taking out the starters to rest for tomorrow, so that's where the points may become a premium. But the Penn game has not moved. It's still Yale is still 6. And Princeton is still 13, I think, here at South Point. So
up to 14.
Up to 14. So now, all right, there you go. That just happened when we came in, pretty much right before we came in the studio, right when we came in. So again, if you can get the points there, they may be worth a little something because of tomorrow's game.
And the Ivy is still ridiculous to me that they play a conference tournament. But hey.
Well, they had to, though.
Well, there's 3 legitimate teams in that league. Like Cornell, Yale, and Princeton are
Jeff,
all
the reason they started it was to try to get more than one bid, and something that it really paid off for them, right? A couple of times where they got at least a couple of bids, but they did. You know what? It's also like the Ivy needs money, right? But listen, anymore conferences do have they've got it. You have to have a conference tournament. You almost have to.
At Columbia this year. Vinny.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Here we go.
Which could end up with Columbia having a home game against the number 1 seed.
Take the subway uptown.
Yeah, exactly. On that for sure. All right, we'll take a quick break. When we get back, more in college hoops. The NBA's also at its All-Star break. I know you got to at least bring that up a little bit. And also, you already have the odds up for next year's Super Bowl as well. Sure. So we got plenty to talk about here on a free throw Friday, as our guy Vincenzo called it here on Sports by the Book.
From the South Point studio, the perfect blend of sports.
But I think the Niners are going to wear them down. Detroit Pistons lost their 36 games.
Comedy.
See over-under on that relationship lasting. I'm going to put mayo in the coffee.
Yes. I am beautiful. And a whole lot of Pittsburgh.
In Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh. Yeah.
Pittsburgh. Join Ryan McCormick.
That's at least 2 picks outside of our own in the first round next year. Oreo.
And host Frank Nicotero.
I look at the clock, I go,
Watch Punchlines live at noon every weekday.
Once you've satisfied your hunger, get ready for more of the hottest casino games in Vegas. Our 24-hour, 30-table non-smoking poker room proudly hosts all the most popular poker games with a variety of betting limits. Visit the poker room for a schedule of daily tournaments. Whether you're going to hold 'em or fold 'em, the best place for poker is at South Point Casino. You'll notice that our craps tables are usually the loudest in the casino. If you've never played, join one of our free craps lessons to find out what makes this game so exciting. Check with the craps dealer for schedules and give it a roll. Bingo is also an exciting way to spend your time. We offer 7 sessions of bingo every day. Bingo! And each session includes a cash ball jackpot, 12 bingo games, a progressive double action game, and a $10,000 bonus coverall. Electronic units are available. If you haven't played bingo with us, give it a try today. Guests can also get in on the action at our one-of-a-kind race and sports books. 2 separate rooms designed to maximize your experience and comfort. Our sports book, with over 400 seats, puts you right in the middle of the action, 24 hours a day.
Welcome back into Sports by the Book at the South Point Studio. I'm Jeff Parles. Alongside me, Chris Andrews, Vinny Maliulo, as always, here on a Friday here on Sports by the Book. All right. We'll keep it in college hoops. We'll go to the futures market here real fast, guys, because Vinny, you and I, when you've joined Alex and I on Saturdays, we've talked, all right, it feels like Connecticut and Purdue are a sliver above everyone else. That's not to besmirch Houston or Arizona or North Carolina or Auburn. It just, look, the proof is in the pudding on Purdue and UConn. They're above those other 2 teams. Now, of course, does this mean that Purdue or UConn's going to win a national championship? Of course not, because the NCAA tournament is the wackiest American sporting event there is. Right now, UConn actually, after their win in their drubbing of DePaul the other day, I know DePaul's taken a lot of drubbings this year. They become the favorite here at the South Point now, 5-1. Purdue sitting at 6-1. Arizona and Houston, the only other single-digit odds teams to win the national championship in basketball.
Well, and rightfully so, because that's also play. You know, I mean, let's face it. I mean, you know, Houston, they defend not particularly deep, but they do get up and down the court and defend. Their defense is outstanding. Sampson's a great coach. They shoot the ball very well. They're really never out of a game. When you look at the body of work of Connecticut and Purdue, Jeff, you have to separate them from everybody else, okay? And I think, you know, what happened to Purdue last year could be similar to what happened to Virginia between 18 and 19. Now, I'm not saying that I'm not anointing them with the title just yet, but we did see an enormous, a terrific turnaround and a championship turnaround by Virginia that year. And I think this Purdue team, from what I've seen, the way they focus, because if you watch Purdue this year too, there's plenty of games where they're down at the half, and the way they respond and the adjustments that they make at halftime and the way they respond in the second half is strong. I think it's scary to say that this Connecticut team, they lost 3 starters from last year's title team. This team is better than last year's team. And good pedigree, terrific coaching. They're going to have to run the gauntlet of the rest of the Big East schedule and the Big East tournament. But then you have everybody else. Are they capable? Who's capable of beating those 2? Well, when they're healthy, certainly Kansas. Houston, if they can, keep it close and defend the way they do and be as disruptive as they are. Arizona, I don't know. I kind of Jekyll and Hyde I see in Arizona. All the talent in the world. give those other teams that I just mentioned a big coaching advantage over Arizona, particularly in big games and in close games. Now, who can be sleepy out there? You know what? SEC. Look at Auburn. Auburn is terrific. Big game tomorrow against Kentucky at home. Mississippi is a dangerous team. The way they can score. Look at what Alabama's doing. Nobody's talking about Alabama. And by the way, the South Carolina team has come out of nowhere and just become I know they got beat up pretty good in their last game, but that was due to happen. I mean, so and then pick a team out of the Big 12 that we talked about a little while ago. So yeah, it's wide open, and I think it's safe to say that we're probably going to see Connecticut and Purdue as number 1 seeds. Tomorrow, the committee will probably come out with Houston, with those two, and maybe Houston and Arizona. I'm not so sure all 4 of them are going to be number 1 seeds by the time we get to Selection Sunday.
It's UConn and Purdue, I think, are like you said, they're locked. They're getting 1 seeds. It's just a matter of who gets the number 1 overall seed and who gets the number 2 overall seed. Purdue will get shipped to the region that's Detroit, the Midwest. Connecticut will play the games in the second weekend in Boston, which is a nice little a little advantageous for them. But
sure.
Hey, you get
why not? Kansas gets it every year.
No, I mean, look, Kansas has played first round games in Wichita and Des Moines and second weekend games in Kansas City. I mean, exactly. I mean, granted, it didn't help them last year because they lost to Arkansas. So, regardless, it's always interesting looking at this right now where, again, Chris, this is the week where the public is like, oh, college basketball exists again.
Right.
Where everyone starts betting, and tomorrow we have 99 games on the card.
Yeah.
Will be the day where everyone makes their triumph. Where, again, people, of course, have been betting it for 3 months now. But the public will make their triumphant return tomorrow to betting college basketball.
Well, no Super Bowl, no NBA either.
Right, NBA All-Star Weekend.
Yeah, so, I mean, you're going to have a lot of guys coming out of the woodwork all of a sudden saying, oh, it's Connecticut. I heard about them. They're pretty good, yeah. And then how about Kansas? They're there every year. I know they have a big game tomorrow. Who are they playing? I can't remember.
Kansas playing Oklahoma.
Yeah, okay. In Oklahoma.
In Norman, yep.
So, I mean, there's some big games. I mean, listen, the Big 12ers, big game pretty much every night. So or at least every time they square off. But, I expect to have a busy day tomorrow. It'll be a lot of fun. We'll get a lot of faces in here that haven't been following college basketball much all year, including me, by the way. I'm just starting to get boning up a little bit on my power ratings. And fortunately, I got Vincenzo over here to my right to help me a little bit.
Well, the biggest game tomorrow is in the Big East because Connecticut welcomes Marquette.
Yes.
I got that one, yeah.
And you look at just the way that these two teams matched up, or they matched up last year, I should say, because they'll play in Milwaukee later in the year.
Yes.
Again, I don't want to take too much from last year, even though, again, UConn won the title last year and they may be better this year. Marquette beat Connecticut twice last year. They beat them in Milwaukee, and then they beat them in the Big East tournament in the 1-4 matchup in that game in Madison Square Garden. Ken Pom has this at 7.
I think it's low.
I was just looking at that.
You think it's low at 7?
I do.
For what Ken
personally.
Pom has. Okay.
And again, they do a great job over there. I just think the way that Connecticut is playing and just current form, the way Marquette is playing. I mean, Marquette, they had a terrific start to the season, right? I mean, who's playing better right now? And it's Connecticut and the home court. I actually make this game a little bit higher than 7, probably about. I'd start at 8 maybe and go from there, but that's my personal number.
Just eyeballing it here on this few books that have it out at open 7.5 and actually got bet to 7.
Okay. Yeah. Don't be shocked if it comes back up.
I wouldn't.
That's all I'm going to say.
I thought 7.5 was where I was looking at, Vinny.
Mm-hmm.
I thought that was probably about right. If this comes 8 by the time this game tips off, it wouldn't shock me one.
Yeah, I think so.
UConn is just demolishing everything.
Again, current form, right?
Yeah, current form is their current form. They've won 13 straight games. They're the best team in the country.
Home court in college basketball is just like college football. It's much stronger in college basketball than it is in the NBA.
Oh, yeah. And we had this conversation a few weeks ago when Kansas played Houston, where Kansas came as an underdog for just the third time since 1996 at home. And it was one of those where it's like, all right, you just have to take Kansas because we're talking home court at the Fog, 6, maybe even 7 points.
It's one of the highest in the country.
I mean, it's one of the bigger numbers you're going to see. I think it is the Personally, I have that as the best home court with Cameron Indoor at second and then Rupp at third, even though Kentucky's defense hasn't traveled down the street this year.
No, and that's probably not going to change.
And Kansas's next game, they got waxed by somebody beat them by 1 million. Who
well,
was it?
Kansas this year has been, and this has happened with these Big 12 teams. The home road splits have been jarring for a lot of them, and Kansas's have been beyond jarring because they lost to Central Florida. Which not a good loss. They lost to West Virginia, which was a terrible loss, even though that's been a house of horrors for them since West Virginia joined the Big 12. Was that a decade ago now? Over a decade ago? They've been there. Lose at Hilton. Who cares? Great home court at Hilton Coliseum. Kansas State beat them in overtime. That's another one. Bramlage is another amazing home court. And then Texas Tech beat them by 29 points.
That's the one I was talking about, yeah.
Bill Self ejected for the first time as head coach at Kansas. Biggest road loss for Self as well.
Kansas has to get healthy, though, too.
McCullough did not play on Monday.
Right. So that team's, for them to be able to make a run, not only in the Big 12 tournament, but in the NCAA tournament, they're going to have to get everybody back and have to, be at 100%. And which they're not right now.
This is not this is a reasonable game I'm bringing up right now, but I'm just curious your thoughts on this one, on this team where Ken Pom has them as a top 10 team right now in the futures book. You have them at 15-1 to win the national championship, and that's the Fighting Illini of Illinois, who go on the road to take on Maryland tomorrow. That is not a particularly easy place to play. It's a gigantic game for Maryland if they're going to have any shot of sneaking in the back door to make the NCAA tournament. Early numbers come 2. There's even some 1.5 in faraway places on this game. With
Illinois the favorite?
Illinois is the slightest of favorites in that game.
Where's that BI number, Jeff?
Oh, that is 721, 722 for tomorrow.
That one, what did I make that game?
2:30 Pacific.
I made Illinois 1 in that game.
You made Illinois 1.
What did they come?
1.5 and 2.
Okay, yeah. I mean, this is
Ken Palm has them 3.
Yeah.
Illinois 3?
Yeah, I think Ken Palm's a little lower on Maryland than I think.
Well, this is this huge game for Maryland. To your point, Jeff, there's no doubt about it. They have to start building their resume, because in all likelihood they are not going to win the tournament, their conference tournament. They're going to need to stockpile on some quality wins right now, and then at least get a couple of wins in the tournament. But it's a huge game for them. There's no question about it. This is too where the public getting involved now at this time is there's big games right now bigger games for some teams than for others, and this is a classic example of that.
Well, there are a bunch of big, bubbly games tomorrow. Butler hosting Creighton is one of them right now. Lenardi has Butler on the right side of it. They win. I think Butler's safe at this rate. Lenardi has that Ken Pom has that as Creighton -1. The market has it as Creighton 2.5. Actually kind of like the underdog at home in a very difficult place to play at Henkel Fieldhouse. And that one, especially if somehow we get a pull of 3, I think that's quite good on Butler in that game. That's 6-11, 6-12, Vinny.
I made Creighton 3.
Creighton 3?
What is
2.5.
Okay.
Ken Palm has them 1.
Yeah, okay. I think Ken Palm's a little bit light. The Creighton should be closer to what Vinny has.
I mean, well, again, who knows? I don't know. I mean, that's just my number. It doesn't make it correct either. But I think from a betting perspective, I mean, listen, there's value to home dogs. Now, we started the season with inflated numbers, and there were some inflated numbers because of brand recognition, and I don't think this is inflated, but again, Creighton's another team, Jeff. Right in the second half, they make some adjustments at halftime, and they come back and really play well in the second half, and that's something obviously that you want to pay attention to as you start to handicap teams going into the tournament. So, but yeah, just for the real quick, we were making numbers before we came out, and that's just what my number came to on this one.
I do want to bring up 731, 732. You mentioned it earlier, Auburn and Kentucky, Vinny, where some people may be surprised at where this number is going to come for tomorrow, where
it's double digits,
right? Where KenPom has it at 10.
Yeah.
Right now, one big multi-state book has it at 9.5.
Yeah.
Some other places and faraway places have it as low as 7.5.
Yeah. Well, I made it 11.
So you made it 11,
and my wife, I'm saying that at the risk of getting locked out of the house tonight.
You have Auburn,
just the couch.
You have Auburn as the number one team in the SEC, right?
I do.
Okay.
I do.
Yeah,
I have Auburn.
So does Ken Palm. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's close between them and Tennessee. For
This
me.
Kentucky team, again, so they started the season one way. Well, they started the season without three starters, without three big men. And they got everybody back. They were playing well. And I have to tell you, I noticed Calipari just got to the point where he was just saying, okay, go ahead and run. Just run. They don't defend.
They don't.
I mean, when you're scoring at the rate they're scoring and losing games, okay, when you're scoring consistently in the 70s and 80s and get to 90, you can't be losing games at the college level. But unfortunately, that's what probably is gonna be their downfall. I mean, there's a lot of talent there. Don't get me wrong, but in the NCAA tournament, you have to be able to defend. You've got to be able to rebound, and you've got to make free throws.
Right.
In Kentucky right now, again, their defense is 104th in the country in KenPom. That is outrageously low.
That's outside the bracket.
Yeah,
I can tell you that.
For a high-end team, that is outrageously low.
Now, I think they're the highest scoring team in the country, right?
They are seventh in offensive efficiency.
Okay.
Yeah. They're
so,
seventh.
the schools ahead of them, though, I'm not sure if they're
right
in
now,
the power. They're not in the power.
I'll give you the ones ahead of them. Alabama's number one, which makes sense because when Alabama shoots well, Alabama's unbelievably good. Number two is Purdue. Makes sense. Number three is Connecticut. All right. So far, so good.
But the two of the Purdue and Connecticut defend. So go ahead.
And, most of these other teams defend.
Not Alabama.
Alabama's 73rd in defense. Arizona is 4th.
Okay.
Baylor is 5th, and Illinois is 6th.
There you go.
I just mentioned 6 high-end teams right there.
And they're all in ahead of Kentucky right now.
Right. And
except for Alabama.
Alabama's 73rd in defense. Baylor's 64th in defense, and Kentucky's 104. Everyone else is in the top 40.
So
it's I will say this: I think
double digits.
When we get to March, it's a weird thing with trying to handicap all these things because normally, if you're going off of KenPom, which a lot of people do, you want a team that's top 20 in both offensive and defensive efficiency. That's usually the key to getting a national championship. Mm-hmm. This year, I think it's going to be a little more complex because you're dealing with a lot of these high-end teams on defense this year are actually good on offense, which doesn't happen very often.
That's a good point,
because Auburn this year, let's take Auburn, for example. Auburn right now is 9th in offense and 4th in defense.
They're strong.
They're top 10 in both. That's hard to find a team like that at any point in a college basketball
You ever watch
season.
Bruce Pearl coach a game?
Oh, he's a crazy person.
I mean, intense, right? And it's almost like he's in the game. I think he's going to sub himself in at one point. You know what else is happening too and I think there's an element of this with Kentucky and Calipari. There's coaches that are still literally trying to figure out what they have in terms of, okay, how do we move forward from March? You may see Calipari go back to the second month of the season style where there was a lot more discipline in terms of his coach, the way he coached. I mean, where he preached, there was more defense. You've got to box out. You've got to instead of just rolling the ball out there. Ref blow. It's jump ball. Let's go, and then we'll see at the end of the game. We'll see where we wind up. I think that there's an element of that. There's still some refining going on, and again, I don't think that's really surprising with a month to go in the season.
I think at this point, you look at a lot of teams, and we'll be able to judge this better in 6 weeks. But teams get either a lot better or a lot worse right around this time.
Correct.
And kind of to Vinny's point, a lot of that has to do with coaching because we kind of know. I mean, there's some injuries and stuff like that, but we kind of know the makeup of most teams. But coaching,
huge.
Listen, it's monstrous. You can just see. I mean, teams can go either way, and I think a lot of that does fall on the coach.
And again, a lot of these teams, Kelvin Sampson, I know Painter's had his problems in March. Still respect the coach. Hurley's a national champion now. I mean, they're just these teams at the top. Again, the only one I don't really try. Well, Rick Barnes, I've never trusted, but that's a different argument for a different day. And Tommy Lloyd is, again, I thought, the best team in the country 2 years ago, and they got smacked by Houston in the Sweet 16, and then they lost to Princeton last year in the round of 16.
Tommy Lloyd, I thought, would have learned some more things, Jeff, to your point, in the last couple of years. I've not really seen it. I mean, that team is absolutely loaded, Arizona, and
you were on them from the beginning of the year.
I was, but the more I watch them, Chris, the more I watched them in some close games, and I think to myself, what are you doing? What are you doing adjustment wise? There aren't any, So not as high on them now as I was at the beginning of the season or the first half of the season.
I want to shift to the NBA real quick because this is another one where a lot of casual
talk about no defense. I'm sorry.
A lot of casual bettors are going to come flying in and start betting the NBA over the next few weeks. It is All-Star weekend.
Yeah.
So 3-point contest, of course, tomorrow. The dunk contest isn't booked. You have the All-Star game, which is back to the original format. So see you later, defense, and that.
Yeah.
But
367 for the total.
367.
I think we got bet down at 366.
Down to 366. Yeah. Okay. But
you can't bet a teaser. Please don't do that. Please don't do that.
It took me a second to comprehend what you said.
Please don't do that.
But going to the second half of the de facto second half, trade deadline's already passed. This would be a really interesting potential run of things going to the playoffs, especially on the West side, where right now, if the Western Conference playoffs were as is, the Lakers and the Warriors would be playing each other in a winner advances to the second play-in game, and the loser doesn't even get there.
And they're both playing pretty good ball right now.
The Western Conference is ridiculous because the top 10 are all over 500 right now. The Lakers are 30-26, and they have 2 games to make up on the Pelicans and the Kings, who are currently in the 7 and 8. And right now, you have 2 teams at the top of the West, guys, where Minnesota and Oklahoma City are 1-2. Oklahoma City's a year ahead of schedule right now, and Minnesota. I don't know if Minnesota last year. Remember last year, everyone loved them going into the regular season, and then Gobert didn't mesh. Yeah. Now Gobert's meshed, and Anthony Edwards has taken another step forward. And here Minnesota is again. Other than a 1 year randomly with Garnett, they have never been in this part of the standings in their franchise's history.
We got waxed pretty good with Oklahoma City.
If they win the West, I would imagine
they win everything.
You wonder what those are young teams without a lot of playoff experience. So that's where a veteran team could take advantage of them. But again, who knows? I mean, these guys are the NBA. Say what you want about it, and listen, I've been critical about the the resting and load management and all of that. But I will tell you this: they're the greatest athletes in the world. They're just amazing. The things they can do. So it's gonna be a fun play. That's really too, Jeff. The public will really get involved with the playoffs, right, Chris? I mean, those first rounds of the playoffs, everybody loves the NBA playoffs.
Well, I'm not a big NBA fan, but I do love the playoffs.
Well, the playoffs are, at least this year, with the way that the Western Conference is going to line up, there are going to be some interesting looking series prices in the first round this year.
Well, players are going to play too. Well, that's the thing. Your rosters are a hell of a lot more stable.
I think don't overlook the East too. Milwaukee's going south, and the Knicks are challenging.
Well, To me, at this point, I don't trust Boston in the playoffs personally. I don't, but they're so clearly better than everyone else.
I know.
Where this is the year, all right, Milwaukee's a mess. The Knicks are good, but they're not on their level.
No Embiid in Philly.
Philly, no Embiid. I don't know if he's coming back for the playoffs
or what. The Cavs are the 2 seed right now. The Cavs are low-key been awesome.
Cavs are pretty good, They're pretty good.
Nice team. Fun team to watch.
It's one of those where if you're Boston, you're going to have home court advantage. Just get to the finals. Get to the finals and see who you draw from the Western Conference.
I think you can put more trust in the Celtics this year. I think they learned from what happened the last couple of years. But
last year, down 3-0, get it back to 3-3, and then get annihilated on your home court in Game 7.
Listen, they got there, right? They had a shot. I mean,
I was.
Not like they got knocked out in the first round, right?
Well, hey, look, Milwaukee might be heading back to doing that for the second consistent year.
Unbelievable what's happened to that team.
Doc Rivers has got a losing record.
I know. I didn't understand that move when they did it.
Yeah,
and now I really don't understand.
There's not a connection there.
No, it's and just look, eyeballing. You guys mentioned it. The Sixers. I think Embiid will be back for the playoffs, but it's no gimme. No. They could fall out and get into a play-in scenario. Indiana, of course, had that great run in the in-season tournament, but it's a whole different ballgame when we're talking best of 7s as opposed to best of 1s, like Indiana was able to succeed with.
I'm not a fan of any NBA team, but with the Greek freak, I got to root for the Greek guy, right?
Yeah,
and I just and he's got one championship under his belt. But there's that team. I was kind of rooting for him a little bit this year, and I thought they were, right there in the midst of, certainly the hunt for the Eastern Conference. But lately, I don't know. I'm not sure I'd bet them to get out of the first round right now.
Speaking of the Bucks, did you see what Barkley said last night about Thanasis Antetokounmpo? Giannis is one of his brothers who's on the Bucks.
I didn't see.
He said that Thanasis has better job security than a Supreme Court justice. Which is a great line.
I'll tell you what, Charles is pretty fun. I mean, I don't know how much money he made during his NBA career. He's had to make way more as an announcer.
Oh, look, that show is still great.
It's a great show. And I'm not an NBA fan, but it's a great show.
You always laugh.
Yeah,
at a bare minimum when it comes to that.
The thing I like about Charles, he's not afraid to laugh at himself. Too.
That's the whole big thing in this thing. Just don't take yourself too seriously, and you're gonna have a good time with it.
What did they do to him the other day? They showed him doing. I can't even remember.
Golfing, probably.
No, it wasn't golfing.
He's a better golfer now.
Somebody gave him some lessons. Yeah,
he actually has a smooth swing now.
They had him doing something. I forgot what it was, but you could just see him laughing at himself.
Get out on the golf course with us. I'll show him a few swings. We'll get a 12-pack in him. You'll see it. We'll go right back to his old swing.
I do want to. You mentioned it before, hockey-wise. Of course, another sport public will start gravitating towards. Of course, Alex White on our show always having.
We'll get Lou Finicaro on too.
Lou Finicaro,
great hockey guy.
I believe Lou is coming on Tuesday.
Is he really?
Of this upcoming week.
Yeah, great hockey guy.
I have to double check that with Alex when she's on with us tomorrow morning. But it's been an interesting hockey go because of course the Knights got off to that humongous start.
It's a good thing they did.
And as Vinny just said properly, it's a good thing they did because they might be on the outside looking in because of that rough mid stretch. But it's going to be an interesting once we get to the playoffs, at least that Pacific pod, and we go back to where we were saying earlier in the show, where right now Vancouver at the moment is on pace to be your President's Trophy winner right now.
They're pretty good. I mean, 2 years ago, if you'd have told me that, I'd say you really need to get your head examined.
The Canucks are good.
Yeah, the only weird quirk is how does Edmonton have 5 games in hand on Vancouver? How did that happen?
Well, look at this. One thing I will say, I love the NHL. It's a great product. The fans are terrific. Teams are great. I'm baffled by their scheduling because, the Knights play tomorrow.
Uh-huh.
So if you look at the Knights schedule, for instance, right, because they're Vegas, right? So you can
Carolina in town tomorrow.
Yes, and they beat the Knights about a month or so ago down there. But if you look at the Knights schedule, the first part of their schedule was so loaded. They were playing like 3 games in 5 nights. It was ridiculous. So now everybody else is catching up, particularly in the division. They played Monday. They're going to have 4 days off between their last game and tomorrow. So I honestly, Jeff, to your point, it's a great question. I don't understand how some of these teams, how the schedule is still as unbalanced as it is, where there's teams with 3, 4, 5, would you say 5 games in hand?
5 in hand.
That's ridiculous.
At this point in the season, that's nuts.
You got the trade deadline coming up. How do you have a team with 5 games in hand?
Yeah, that's crazy.
Okay,
I'm going to quote Dejan Kovacevic, who writes DK Pittsburgh Sports. Every Pittsburgher, and I know we got a lot of Pittsburghers out there. You got to follow this website. His quote is, "Great game, horrible league," and I hate to say he's probably right.
By the way, the outdoor games at the Meadowlands the next 2 days as well. Devils will play the Flyers. Rangers will play the Islanders.
Yeah.
In East Rutherford. It does kind of feel like it could be the Rangers' year finally yet again. It's been a while. 94, of course.
94, yeah.
Playing well. They got it. I think they're getting healthy too, aren't they, Jeff?
Yeah, they are. Won 6 in a row going into that game at the Meadowlands.
By the way, speaking of
Sunday.
health and the Golden Knights, keep an eye out. They may be getting Shea Theodore back.
Mm-hmm.
He's been skating without without the red jersey, the proverbial red jersey, on the last few days. So they're going to need to get healthy, and then of course it's got to be Eichel and Carrier come back for them too. So, but yeah, just one other thing about the schedule too. If you're another team, if you're like the Penguins, Chrissy mentioned the Penguins before with Letang getting hurt. You know how many games other teams or they may have in hand. They're trying to play into a playoff spot, but also try to balance what do we look towards the future, because people are going to come knocking.
Yeah.
I mean, they're not going to get rid of Sidney Crosby, but there's guys on that roster like a Letang, like a Riley Smith, who was here a year ago, that the Penguins could accumulate assets for. And, they've always been buyers at the trade deadline. And that, I don't know if that'll be the case this year or not. I really don't know. By the way, a friend of the show, been on here a couple of times, Josh Yohe. Great article from him. He's not with DK Pittsburgh Sports. He's with The Athletic. Mm-hmm. But a good article there. And also a good article, not by Josh. I forget who wrote the article. But a good article about Yager and Mario Lemieux and about their relationship over the years. And another reason why I wore this tie. Very nice.
Before we get out of here today, guys, Future Book is already up for next year's Super Bowl.
Yeah.
Already up. All I will say is that, Chris, and just eyeballing the early numbers, the fact that the Packers got bet, not surprising to me.
No.
I think that's the team. There's always one team in the offseason that everyone pinpoints and say, hey, they're the team that's going to take a leap. I think Green Bay's that team in the NFC and the AFC. It's just, get Joe Burrow back on the field in one piece, and Cincinnati immediately becomes the team they were again with Burrow the last 2 years.
I mean, I'd look out for the Chargers too. I think Harbaugh really going to, move that team up. But I would say Green Bay, I understand the feeling. I think they still might be one more year away. But I think that is a coming team. It really is.
Well, that division where going into this year, I thought it could have been a whole mess. Of course, Detroit took control of it and ended up winning it. If the Bears do the offseason correctly, which is a gigantic if.
Yep.
It is more than possible. There are 3 teams in that division, Detroit, Green Bay, Chicago, that could all be quite good, even with a potential rookie quarterback there in Chicago next year.
Tough one. Yeah,
It's
I'm not
tough.
sure.
It's tough.
That's another coaching. I'm not that confident there in that coaching situation.
Well, the other thing about the prices too for the Future Book, remember they're going to change, and they're not real high right now, and the reason is there's free agency coming up, and the draft, and it's not like the draft is going to impact it as much as the draft combined with trades, and if there's a cluster of players moving based around those trades, so take a look at the prices now, and what you're handicapping now is, do I get a really good price on a team that is probably going to come down because they're already good, and are they going to do some tweaking, or do I think that somebody's going to go up and hold up on it? So that's your handicap right now.
I think the most fascinating thing is Kirk Cousins. I expect to be on the move this offseason.
Oh yeah, sure.
whoever signs him, say it's the Atlanta Falcons, that 30-1 is not going to be there if Kirk Cousins ends up being
especially in that
there.
division.
Yeah, I mean, they would. The Atlanta with Kirk Cousins, even though I didn't love their head coaching hire, they're the betting favorites with ease in that division. Even right now, based off of your futures numbers, Atlanta would have to be the favorite in that division anyway at the moment.
Yeah, I'm not hearing much buzz out of Pittsburgh, but I know there's some that they want Kirk Cousins. But there's a lot of buzz out there.
A lot of names. There was one book that had Russell Wilson's next team odds that Russell Wilson went from 14-1 to -145 to go to Pittsburgh.
Really?
Earlier today, which if I were the Steelers, don't do that. Don't do that. I'd much rather have Fields if I were Pittsburgh.
I would too.
Do that sort of experiment.
Listen, I got to tell you, I know there's a lot of different opinions there. I liked Fields coming out of college. I still like Fields if he's in the right situation. I think Pittsburgh could be a very good situation for him. But kind of the underlying thing, it seems like, boy, they've soured on Kenny Pickett pretty quick.
I think I don't expect him to be the starter week 1.
And I didn't like him.
Amazing.
I didn't like him coming out of college either.
26 years old as well.
When's the last time the Steelers hired or signed a free agent quarterback?
Ooh.
To start? Well, Trubisky, technically.
Well, Tommy Maddox, if you go back again.
Go back to the early 2000s. Old XFL, Tommy Maddox.
Yeah.
MVP, I believe, of the title game.
Yeah, he was. Game that was played at Sam Boyd, right?
That's right.
Yeah, there we go. It all comes back to Vegas, everybody. All right, that's all the time we have here today. We are back tomorrow morning, 8:30 in the morning. Myself, Alex White, getting you ready for 99 college basketball games tomorrow. Don't worry, Sean. We won't hit all 99. You're good. You're good over there. We'll also be back on Sunday as well. We'll actually have 3 on the desk on Sunday. We'll have Matt Never joining us on Sunday as well. And then a fresh week kicks us off at 3 o'clock next Monday. Chris, Vinny, pleasure as always.
Yes, sir.
See you next Friday.
Absolutely.
We will see you tomorrow, 8:30 in the morning, here on Sports by the Book.